Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, chune shumme, washmale, ohio genzaimes. Guten Morgen. Hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore, ahlan wasal, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabia, bhalli kare hai, hosh galdin. And I was sayo khuya morachi, vatochi, hal yud, kalimera. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV1 and are ready to kickstart their day with us with World this morning. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and with me, I'm very lucky to have been joined by Ms. Haja Sati. Ladies and gentlemen, first things first, I think what I really need to do is I need to ask a question from Haja today in the first place. So, Haja, are you ready?
Okay.
So, the question is that, I think we've been doing this show together now, alhamdulillah, for more than 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, 1 year, something
all right,
like that.
and it take, obviously, so it's a lot of time for you to remember all of those highs and hellos I say. So, how many of you can reproduce?
Okay, I don't think so. I can match your caliber in reproducing them, but I think certainly when you're constantly listening to something, so you may recall something.
True.
Considering
So
the
what
fact
can
that
you?
I don't have
So what
a
can
very
you
good
recall?
memory. Okay, Ohio Alzheimer's, and then Hosh Galden, because I
Yes.
Marhaba, and what else?
Kaifa hal, hal shubha, chitore.
Ahlan masalan marhaba, something like that. Mucho, gracias. And I think then the train of thought will go on and but Shahzad.
But before you say anything, so ladies and gentlemen, other than us being in our human forms today, since it's an era of emerging technologies, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by our robotic selves as well.
Yes.
So I have humanoid, Shahzad Khan humanoid right in front of me. And Haja, what do you?
Wally.
Okay, why would you call your robotic self Wally?
Because there's this cartoon character, and I think this guy looks exactly the same, and I'm really worried about this guy because I don't want the artificial intelligence to evolve that much that they would take my place in the first place, right? And I'm really glad that it is in the smaller form so that I can dominate it the moment I feel it is threatening me.
Or switch it off. Okay,
yes.
you're getting out of your boundaries. Let's switch you off. But I think it kind of truly depicts the way we are, on the program. So imagine that this one over here, the humanoid, is capable of dancing and entertaining people and whatnot. It can fall down, pick itself up. Yes. And with Wally over here, Wally can actually give you a lot of knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. But why are we even talking about emerging technologies today?
Right. So I think this is something very interesting where the conversation is going on, especially with the artificial intelligence. But certainly we are going to talk further about the robots and whatnot, the technology which is evolving. But before that, Shahzad, since you're fond of going to the mountainous areas, and Pakistan is blessed to have the mountainous areas with lots of glaciers and lots of the snow, and Pakistan has very rugged landscape, and it has a diversity in terms of the landscape. So there was very interesting information in which the people of Gilgit-Baltistan, they consider these glaciers as the living entity, right? And they hold their weddings in the first place.
Right?
Yes, so the female river is called Mochu and the male river is called Pochu, right? So Po, Papa, or the more fatherly side, right? And it's very interesting because the Pochu, which is the female river, it's very softer, the flow is very nice, it's very smooth, but the Pochu, that has a very turbulent river, it's very strong and it's very gushing water. And when those two combine together, so the Gilgit-Baltistani people consider that it is the wedding of the river because it will give birth to another glacier, right? So that's very interesting that how local people take the ownership of the glaciers.
And how local people have been discriminating different genders in being aggressive and being docile. I think we really need to mention this over here.
Softer version, more,
well, why are only women considered softer? I think there are a lot of men who are softer too. Men like me.
I mean, because
I'm too soft.
Because the caregiving functionality, because women gives birth
Motherhood.
to it. So it's linked by nature. It's linked to the women, right?
True.
So it's not discrimination at all. This is how the nature works, right?
Which is why I didn't really blame you for that. I said that the locals might have come up with this very idea of Mochu and Pochu. And imagine, us going back home and calling my father Pochu, and he's like, Gochu, you really need to get out of here. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful concept, and people really need to kind of come across these amazing stories which still exist, So it's not certainly a story, it's a reality, and that's how people think. And they think that the rivers get married, they think that mountains get married, and there's this concept, and whenever you're around mountains, Hajra, there's this wonderful feeling of this supreme authority's existence. And this is something which I felt when I, for the very first time, went to the northern areas. And, so when I went to the Pasu cones, and when I went to the Khunjra Pass,
Batakundi,
yeah,
yes.
Batakundi and all
Yes.
of these places. Batakundi, by the way, is very cold,
Yes,
you know.
yes.
So
We're planning to go
so,
there.
so you know,
Yeah.
you go from, and if you are going over there,
Yes.
please make sure that you stay in a hotel, because I stayed over there within that, you know, makeshift container.
Okay.
It was really cold, and I certainly did actually kind of communicate this to my family that, okay,
Right.
you know, if we are to come to Batakundi again, I'm not going to stay in this
Right.
container.
Oh, it's really cold there.
Yeah, it's really cold.
Okay, okay. But I think that that's really awesome, and I'm really glad that how local communities take the ownership of the glaciers, and it's high time that we as a humanity also take care of the glacier, because the kind of the climatic changes that are going there, right, inside the country and in the world as a whole. So we are not taking care of how our glaciers are melting so rapidly, but when the local entities or when the local population, they take care of their glaciers, and they're very concerned about the health of the glaciers in the first place. So this is something that we also as a humans need to be careful of that, and we need to learn a lot from the local community there, because it is their tradition. It's very sweet, and it's also very concerning at the first place.
And it's because of these technologies which we have, you know, at our disposal these days, with which we can actually tell you that, you know, how glaciers are depleting, you know, how there's islands which are depleting, and it's because of climate change, and you know, how we are making sure that, you know, with such technological interventions, you know, human health is actually going to improve. And so in all facets of life, ladies and gentlemen, there is a purpose of technology which is being fulfilled. At times people get scared of it. At times people are like, okay, wow, this is wonderful. So imagine if I'm going to go get my blood samples tested, you know, it's all technology. Imagine, God forbid, if I have, you know, ache in my back, you know, I'm going to go get my MRI done. It's because of technology. You know, you are to construct your homes, you know, there's this architect who's going to, you know, use the software to create this very, you know, great structure for you, or 3D modeling. It's because of technology. If we are on your television right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's because of this technology we are using via satellite. So imagine that technology has been around us, you know, it's just these, that the humans have actually found out more technological adventures for themselves to kind of use and then comprehend and then make sure that they're going to take best advantage of it. How is Pakistan doing so, you know, in terms of emerging technologies, something which we will be talking about? I'm really excited, you know, because I do not want to kind of, you know, mention it on television over and over again, and I've never done that. But I truly believe that our morning show, Alhamdulillah, stands out of the rest, and it's because of the fact that we do not about shadi, we do not talk about, you know, saas bahu ki ladai and whatnot. So ladies and gentlemen, focusing on our content, we're very lucky that we've been actually joined by the Chief Executive Officer of Robotmea Pakistan, who happens to be Mr. Syed Burhan Ali. Hello sir, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, and thank you very much, first of all, for giving me this astounding count of information about Pakistan. And thank you very much for calling me on such a very important topic today. So thank you.
And you know, it's always a pleasure for us to have people like you, you know, who are working in the right direction, making sure that they're going to maintain that focus, because the last time Humanoid was over here on our show, while Humanoid was dancing, it fell down and it came back up and whatnot. So when we speak of emerging technologies, you know, we do see these robots and how, you know, they're becoming very common. And Hajra even kind of mentioned that how scary it is at times that they might be replacing us, you know, in near future, God forbid, if we are not going to unlearn and then learn again. So everybody needs to learn. So what is the concept of emerging technologies, and how do you think Pakistan is doing on the course of emerging technologies?
To me, the way I look at this, you know, I would say this technological disruption, which we normally see across the world. So, and in terms of Pakistani perspective, so Pakistan is a land, as you said, it is a land of opportunities. And when we talk of innovation and entrepreneurship, and then the use of technology, so Pakistan is amongst the best countries with, you know, limitless opportunities for using technology. And for emerging technologies, as we all know that it is basically the artificial intelligence, the sense and react, which is going to transform the, you know, routine jobs, and particularly the anchors. In fact, we have seen all across the world.
It's not really a routine job, though. There are very few people who happen to be
thank
anchors.
God Allah is not yet created. We can shut it down.
Please
and for that, simply I can give you an example that I always take it in this way, that newscasters can be replaced, but not the anchors. So the routine jobs,
I mean, for my friends who happen to be newscasters, it's not a very good news for them. But, you know, while we speak of it, you know, don't you think that, you know, in days to come, probably the Chief Executive Officer of Robotmea can be robot too?
Yes, why not?
Right.
That's what Jack Ma always talk about, that after 3 years we'll be seeing the best CEO which is of course robot.
But you know, I think at this point in time, I would want to kind of bring this back, and you know, and I would certainly want people to kind of understand it, because this is something which Jim Carrey spoke about, and he said that imagine people these days are really happy of being in a car which is being driven automatically. So he's like, okay, you know, and then the next thing you know is that, you know, there will be days when you've actually been called to the police station, and you know, you do not have any control over your car, and it goes and parks itself outside the police station, and that's the time when you're going to realize. But the right use of technology can actually take you to the moon, and you know, there's no limit, to be very honest. So how do you think that we should integrate these technologies into our lives, where we make sure that we as humans are happily existing amongst, you know, all of these humanoids or volleys or robots we have, you know, over here inside the studios?
So you know, the first thing is to we as a nation, we need to embrace and then accept technology, and once we accept that technology, and as we always talk about this, you know, technological change, so change is the only constant. True. And we have no other option except to accept this change.
Yes.
And when we accept this change, so we need to identify the gray areas, and when we talk about Pakistan and the opportunities which we have in integrating technology, so there are so many areas where there are so many gray areas. For example, we can talk about industrialization. So the first thing is that how we can actually tailor our traditional industries into
more
predictive industries. Apart from that, you know, we have a huge sector which is real estate. So in real estate, how we can bring smart construction and smart buildings and smart infrastructure landscape into mainstreaming kind of
people are using 3D printers to build homes now.
Yes. And apart from that, you know, we as a nation, we are basically agricultural based, and integrating technology with agriculture is the need of the hour. Like it's really.
And I'm very sorry, Burhan bhai, that I'm intercepting, and this is something which actually makes me feel sad a little bit as well. So imagine that, you know, for a family, if they've been in agriculture for the last 5 decades, you know, they still have the same practice, where, you know, when we see that, you know, per acre cultivation has actually increased, or the harvestation has increased, and people have gone from probably, you know, if they were producing 1,000 tons already, you know, within the same land, you know, they've moved on to 3,000 or 4,000 of it. So how do you think that, you know, that we really need to kind of make sure that all of this technology, which can actually help people have bigger turnovers or bigger turnouts of the cultivation or the harvestation, how do you think that we can make it accessible and affordable for them to kind of move on to newer technologies?
To me, you know, even the other day I was just reading a report from Forbes, and for me to understand this, I mean, the most important thing is to educate the nation. Educating the nation, and then, you know, embracing and accepting this change, you know, once they are really young, is the only way of doing it. Like for example, we always talk about, you know, artificial intelligence, and AI is going to transform the world, and then at the same time we also talk about you know, the virtual realities, and then mixed realities, and then extended realities. But we are missing one element which is very important, and in fact today I would like to just shed light on the educational technology.
Okay.
That how education is going to be disrupted through this technology, because on one side we need to educate the masses, we need to educate the public, and at the same time this you know, the emerging technologies are going to disrupt the classroom environment, and that's the key.
That's true.
For example, now we are using these gadgets.
It is already doing that, because nowadays, whenever you give your assignments, the students go to ChatGPT and then they bring back an assignment which is already copy pasted. So there's no point of giving the assignment, and I think we need to learn to live with artificial intelligence and the way it is growing. But I would like to also allude to another important point, where the godfather of the artificial intelligence, who resigned from the Google, and he said that artificial intelligence is creating a lot of nuisance in the modern world, and we need to think about as a whole humanity, that how do we want the artificial intelligence to evolve together, because it is very threatening and there is no rules and regulations. We can't differentiate between what is truth, what is wrong. So as someone who is very closely integrated in this area, I would suppose, so how do you view the evolution
and you can
of
answer that, but I think
intelligence?
all of a sudden this robot is doing something. So would you like to share with us what is this robot doing over here?
Yes, so we have a line tracer robot. Simply it is basically following the line, and that's how we actually teach our students the language of 0 and yes, and how the sensor actually works. And apart from that, we have a scientific project where you can see the gear ratios. So we are actually teaching the students about the scientific principle behind that.
Okay.
So this is basically, as you said, and in fact you were discussing about the soft side of it, like Chat GPT. So we always we say this as the passive use of technology, and then if you compare this with Chat GPT and other, for example, if you talk about the blended learning mechanisms, so that is the passive use and here is the active use of technology.
Wow.
So there are two different kind of streams.
And why is it stopping now?
It has some problem, by the way.
It's all right, it's all right.
Which
is why, ladies and gentlemen, humans will always be relevant. You need to stop these robots when God forbid they're malfunctioning. Yes.
These, you know, these are the educational, you know, simply materials. Apart from that, you know, if we go back to the same discussion, the passive use and the active use. As we all know that, you know, we are living in the, I would say, the age of information, and lots of information is coming in.
Right.
And then it is purely depending on us that how we are going to use it. But AI is not just limited to this information age. AI is something beyond that. I mean, for example, training a humanoid for just to sense and then react, and then sense, learn, and then act is basically the best form of the artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So we can simply take our industries by using the best use of artificial intelligence and to get the maximum results.
But do you always think that it is going to be the best practices that always the humans are going to be focused? Because when we talk about technology, it depends upon how we use it, right? So the best use and the worst of the use. So we are also susceptible to the worst of the use in the first place, right? So how do you deal with that evolution of the worst use of the technology?
Yeah, or how do you make sure that, you know, these robots and these mechanisms which you're developing within these robots will actually not be used against humanity, or probably used to destruct, God forbid, something. So how do you think that you instill that software into it, that okay, nobody can hack it and take, you know, because I've seen that movie I, Robot, if you've seen that too, you know.
Future,
exactly. So how do we make sure, or the people who are actually at the forefront of the technology, how do they make sure?
This is, you know, this is just a very small domain of this side of it, and we call this as, you know, a kind of the study of DNA or genomics or human 2.0, where we talk about the superlative human beings versus the normal human beings. But apart from that, you know, there are so many other areas where we can talk about, and I can give you the examples from the real world. Now let's talk about a classroom which we have in the current day and age. Now we are living in 21st century. We have virtual reality, which is of course now becoming reality everywhere. And in fact, 6-7 years ago, I've attended a program where Russian government was talking about the use of virtual reality in their classrooms.
Right.
Just imagine if we actually develop a complete curriculum of Indus civilization in virtual reality and we show it to the students. We are living in the age of experiences. So how this actually going to transform the educational landscape, how it is actually, what kind of impact it has on the minds of the students, where they will experience everything, simply they can have the 3D glasses and just think about the impact of it. Exactly. Apart from that, we are actually heading towards the, you know, complete transformation of robotics and then AI and then IoT. Now bringing these kind of emerging
what is Internet of Things? IoT, yes?
IoT, yes. Internet of Things and then robotics.
Artificial intelligence se bhi koi agli cheez aa gayi.
No, it is basically, it is under, rather, you know, I just to make it, you know, for maybe to bring clarity for you, it is the artificial intelligence which is going to take over the technologies.
Right.
And IoT and then robotics, it is basically the part of AI.
Right.
Okay, so simply it's basically a kind of, I would say it is a kind of a medium or a machine that has to learn something, okay, through obviously algorithms, and then on the basis of the experiences they have to perform the process.
Exactly. So which is why, you know, there's one more thing which I wanted to discuss today, and I couldn't really wait to have you over here on our program, and that was that, you know, because I've been using Chat GPT, not for my programs or to generate questions, but I make sure that, you know, that we stay in line with the newer technologies so that we learn about it more. And what I've realized is that, you know, it's the name which looks very dangerous, but rather what the artificial intelligence platforms are doing is that whatever information is available on Google or elsewhere on the Internet of Things, IoT, what they do is that it's a single window operation. You go to that same application, it can do anything for you. So it's rather than you going to Google, you open up this application and it will give you all the results from all over the world. And, you know, you have this ability to pick and choose and kind of make it more relevant. So it does not really sound that dangerous to me. I think it's the name which actually kind of scares people. Artificial intelligence aa gayi, bhai daur hi change ho gaya. Do you think I'm correct in thinking the way I'm thinking?
You know, it totally depends. It totally depends because artificial intelligence will behave differently on predictive industries, of course with 5G technology, whereas it is going to behave differently when we talk about platforms like ChatGPT or chatbots or ChatGPTs. to me, I look at it differently, being Pakistan as a nation. And we always talk about, first industrial revolution to second industrial revolution and then third and fourth. And now world is heading towards fifth industrial revolution. So my point is that again we are becoming consumers.
Okay.
Like there was a high time when
we need to be
the Western
developers.
World, yes. So there was a time when the Western world or the progressive nations, they were actually manufacturing things, and then we were at the receiving end. Now again it is the same thing. They are developing platforms like ChatGPT and we are simply using them. So it will actually, to me, it is going to affect the nation.
Exactly.
And it is the high time to produce critical thinkers. It is the high time to produce creative thinkers and then problem solvers. But by using these
develop
platforms,
softwares, develop mechanisms, develop hardware, and we have always been very vocal about it. So imagine that if, for example, our economy, Haja, is dependent on agriculture, so what we do is that we export probably a truck of wheat, and all we get in return is an iPhone, So I think what we really need to do is that we need to be the ones who actually export these materials to that, so that our economy can actually come up to a level where we can compete internationally.
Yeah, but I think there needs to be some correction, because yes, Pakistan was an agriculture-based economy, but now it has moved to services-based economy, and that includes the IT and lot of freelancers.
But we still have a long way to go, because our exports are at $2 billion as of now.
There's no denying the fact, and we do not have a very established Silicon Valley here, like it is being replicated in a lot of the places of the world. So we need to focus.
Can I touch you?
Okay. Okay. So
all right. So what we're going to do is that we're going to use it and then ask us. So because this robot can actually sing me a song. So to the left, it's going to listen, right? To the left, it's going to listen. All right. So are you? Oh, hey.
I am Idol. Lovely Idol.
Hi.
Let's play.
Hey. How are you? Hello. How are you?
Hello.
Wow.
Make good friends.
Wow. So can you sing me a song?
Okay.
Wow.
Please sing with me together.
Okay.
Bingo.
Bingo.
There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name. Oh, B-I-N-G-O.
Oh, Haja, you're so good at poems.
N-G-O. B-I-N-G-O. And Bingo was his name. Oh.
Wow. So if I switch it to the other side, what's going to happen then?
it has different programs.
Okay. So let's see.
Different programs.
So I'm going to switch it to the other side.
So it's off now.
I am Idol. Lovely Idol. Let's play.
Let's play. Can you play? Can you give me a high five? I don't think so. Okay, so you've done good enough for our program today. I'm going to switch you off for now. And yeah, it was wonderful to see.
Yes.
But now what I need to ask you is that with all of these robots and people learning and mechanisms, so obviously, your direction is that we kind of integrate these technologies into any field we are operating. What is the advanced level? Because when we speak of emerging technologies, where do you think Robotmea is thinking as of now? Where have you kept your focus that this is what is certainly to be achieved in days to come?
When we, as a nation, and if we see the opportunities which we have as a country, and we talk about Pakistan, so there are huge potential. I mean, there are so many opportunities which we have. And for us, the best way is that we need to simply create a kind of a synergy or an environment where we, simply bridge the gap between industry and academia.
All right.
And we need to harness the environment of innovation and entrepreneurship, because we as a country, we need to understand Pakistan and its potential, in terms of opportunities which we have all across. We can take the example of, as we spoke about agriculture. From agriculture to we can talk about the industries, and from industries then we can talk about educational technology and our focus. For example, I can give you an example. Just imagine that if Pakistan can take lead in manufacturing these kind of gadgets.
Yep.
Just imagine. And then at the same time we develop a kind of the environment of research where we develop contents.
Right.
And then exporting such a thing to the world, how much revenue it can bring to the country.
What is stopping you? I mean, what are the challenges in that, and how do you find Pakistani market? Because I don't think so. There's not many developers there, so there's a lot of scope. when it comes to Pakistan, because it is a very fertile land.
And in addition to that, let's speak of that ecosystem which really needs to exist. And there's a reason why I'm saying so, because imagine that for you and Robotmea to actually build these prototypes, you actually had to take a lot of Legos, you had to bring all of these machinery, that too from outside Pakistan, which actually is a question mark for all of us, that imagine that there's no ecosystem which exists for people to develop such technologies. So with these challenges, what are the other challenges which you are affiliated with as of now, and how do you think that you're going to overcome them?
That's what we have been discussing it. Even the last week we met with the Education Ministry, and our chairman was also here, and we would have the same plan.
Yes.
For us, for example, once we import all this material from Pakistan, from other countries, so that has lots of challenges.
True.
And to actually overcome those challenges, the best way is to go for the manufacturing. And we have it in our mind that without manufacturing we cannot actually expand this program to the downtrodden. Of course, Pakistan is not a very a rich country. We need to understand the challenges which we have, and at the same time we need to use Pakistan as a country who actually develop our indigenous contents.
Exactly.
But there are some challenges. For example, if you talk about the global markets, or taking the global markets on board for such a products. So we have challenges in producing good quality DC motors or good quality servo motors, and then importing such an advanced machinery who can actually produce such a thing. And then at the same time it has also programmings and the patents, but we are still discussing it with our South Korean.
And don't you think that for that to be achieved, we certainly need more people to make sure that they're using our hardware more, the softwares more as well. So there's this, cost to profit ratio as well, which is being achieved by any production plant which is being put in place over here in Pakistan. And how do you think that the government can actually extend its support in making sure that for all of those people who actually want to bring this ecosystem to life, what would you want from the government's perspective?
The ecosystem, the enabling environment. I mean, that's the key. I mean, how we we need to understand this as a process, that if you have a manufacturing plant, or if we have the facility of manufacturing where we are manufacturing these basically block
products,
assemblies, but after these block assemblies we also need to produce humanoids.
True.
And once we are actually producing humanoids, so then definitely we have to have the R&D of collaborative robotics. We have to have the R&D of industrial robotics, and that would be a kind of a game changer for Pakistan, because on one side it will have the universities simply come on board. Apart from universities, I mean the manufacturers, which is of course the investors, and then manufacturers with universities, and then the government to come in. So we simply have a different transformational environment. And when we say this transformational environment, so just imagine the child who is studying in a university, or a young kid studying in the university, he or she has a FIP which is related to robotics, AI or IoT. They are going there, they are getting that exposure, they are learning the software part, the hardware part, the payloads and everything, and then they are coming up with their own innovation and invention. I mean, that is the changing.
And thank you so much for mentioning that, because I still remember that for all sorts of projects we underwent over here in our university. I'm very sorry, but I'll have to say it. I love my university, not that I do not, because whatever I do today, alhamdulillah, is because of their contribution. They have certainly contributed into me being a person I am today. But imagine, so there were these mechanical engineers who would make these motorbikes and bring in those engines and cars and whatnot. They're still with the university, and imagine that we paid for it from our pocket. So it wasn't the university which was providing us with the funds. That, hey, you know what, kids, why don't we make a motorbike? But yeah, make a motorbike, go get money from your parents, and then bring it to the university, and the university gets to keep it. So I was like, hey, you know what, I think that this is the irony.
Practice. Yeah,
this is the irony.
Shouldn't be happening, but because there are universities out there that give you grants to carry out your research work, and I think that should be happening all across the Pakistan. And we need to have a more vibrant intellectual environment in which students can grow and actually get integrated with the market in the first place, which is happening, I think, in the developed world all around the world. But thank you so much for coming to our show and for having these very mini versions of us. But with that, we have a very interesting conversation lined up. So after a
and
short
that too
break,
about education.
That's true. So after a short break, we are going to come back. So don't go anywhere.
Good morning.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, we were talking about the education, we were talking about the robotics, and we are also going to talk about the education because I think that is the need of the hour now. Since our state has taken this brilliant initiative, which was the need of the hour for having the one curriculum inside the entire country, and we have to streamline our thoughts. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce our guests because time is really short and we want to take the maximum out from them. So we are very glad that we have been joined by Abdul Muiz, who happens to be an educationist. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum assalam.
Right. Joining him, we also have Mudassir Mehmood, who also happens to be an educationist. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. You know, and most of the time, whenever we have people from who actually happen to be educationists, it's wonderful to call them sir because it reminds us of our childhood as well.
Yes.
But very quickly, congratulations. Ministry of Education has got the single national curriculum approved for the grades from 9 till 12. Earlier in the first phase was from first grade till 8. So where are we headed now? What's the next step? Let's get it.
All right. So when single national curriculum was launched, it was happening in phases. So first phase was that where they launched the curriculum from grade 1 to 5. And the next phase was actually in the middle year programs from grade 6 to 8. Now it's a massive step because 9 to 12 is a different ball game, because you have subjects like biophysics, chem, actually students are having a career orientation and they're deciding that, okay, where to end in freshman year.
Right.
So it's going to be a different ball game. The curriculum council has worked hard. There were different, councils which were arranged at regional level, and input was taken all over the Pakistan. And finally, the curriculum was finalized in the National Curriculum Council. And recently, the curriculum has been launched. The framework has been decided.
Right.
And from the next term onwards, we look forward to, grade 9 to 12 actually implementing the curriculum.
Right,
so
right.
let's see how it's going to go.
Right, so we're very hopeful about it. So Mudassir, coming to you, since we have lots of debates regarding 3 different streams of thoughts that are working in our education system. So there are kids coming from the madrasas, then there are kids from the OA levels background, and then there are kids from the metric and FSC background.
Like
right?
us.
Yes, and we have talked about how we need to merge all of these 3 streams into one education system, and there should be uniformity all across that, right? So since we are talking about 9 to 12, and I think that is exactly that age group or the time period of that school which needs to be more streamlined and uniform in the first place, where are we heading under the single national curriculum program?
SNC.
Yeah, of course, we already talked about it's a great initiative, and I think the reason why this stage, like from grade 9 to 12 matters because that's the time when students are heading toward universities.
Yes.
And when they, send their application toward universities, it's a, completely, entirely like disparity among students from, Beacon House and City School, and then from,
Then you have people from Rahim Yar Khan and
exactly,
Sakhar and
exactly.
Yes.
And they're good at speaking English. They're good
Yes.
at their confidence is pretty high. Of course, their thinking skills are way better than the students from
Yes.
mainstream schools.
They stand out.
Exactly. So I think this is going to be a great initiative in terms of overcoming this disparity, and students will get equal opportunity to get into top universities, and of course that will create balance in the whole country.
Right.
So I think it's going to be an amazing step.
Do you think we are heading in the same direction? I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
cutting you in the first place. When we are talking about developing a single curriculum and merging all 3 streams of thought, because I think the students who are coming from the madrasa background, they're very marginalized in terms of now not having the market access. So for example, the students who graduate from the madrasas are going to become a Qari Sahab or the Imam of the masjid in the first place. I know these are prestigious positions, but in terms of having a good employment or the job opportunities, I don't think so there's a very good integration for those kids out there, right? So why can't they be doctors? Why can't they
Exactly.
be engineers or many other professions that we join from the normal schools, right? So how do you think this is going for those kids?
Yeah, of course, when because when I talk about students from madrasas, of course they learn just religious
Theological,
curriculum on
yes.
top, right?
Right.
But now there is a balance, right? They will actually get an opportunity to learn chemistry, physics, maths,
Yes.
and all these subjects.
Yes.
And of course, they will get more chances to see like what's going on in the world, and they are going to be prepared to get into the market.
Yeah.
Because you can't, when you're just getting the religious education,
Yes.
you are only preparing yourself to become a Qari Sahib, to be very
Right.
honest,
True.
right?
Right.
But when you're learning like sciences and arts and other disciplines of life, of course then you'll become at least eligible to be the part of that system where you
Right.
can get jobs.
Right.
And not just Qari Sahib, obviously an alim too as well, ladies and gentlemen, which we certainly need over here. But my question is really very different, so I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Muiz, and that is that so with Balochistan, we have a very different board. So it's probably Balochistan board, and then there's Sindh board, and then there's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa board. So every board was different. So are we saying that, with this implementation, we'll see that all the board examinations will be the same all over the country?
Yes.
And then the dates of the execution of the examination will be the same, because just very recently, unfortunately, we have seen the sad state of affairs where, there were parents outside their school buildings making sure that they're going to help them and make them cheat in their examinations and whatnot. And, certainly there are a lot of people who might not have learned anything from grade 1 till 8th, and all of a sudden they're here appearing in their 9th examination, which gets it very difficult for them. So how is it going to work?
That's an excellent question, and this is one of the things that we really look into. Look, it's a gradual process. We are improving ourselves, right? It's a big loophole. The thing with the SNC is they just develop the curriculum and they're just floating out into the market, right? But what about the implementation of it? So there needs to be a board which needs to develop the quality, the quality assurance of it. If you're not going to look back into the quality of how that curriculum is being implemented, then there is no point of floating that SNC out of it. So first question where you said Sindh board, Balochistan board, yes, it's all over now. It's going to be the same all across. The assessment model, it's going to be the same all across. But again, if somebody is sitting back in Balochistan where there is no internet facility, and here in federal, you have very strict invigilators, one cannot promise that. And SNC is definitely not accountable for that, but that's a very valid point. It's definitely a disparity in the merit, and you cannot allow that. So that has to be done by the government, and there needs to be a collaboration, because there is a big lack in the collaboration. Sindh was actually kind of,
and everybody needs to work together to make sure that our future generations actually share the same knowledge.
And if you really want to kind of cut down this difference, as Hajra was talking about the fact that we have madrasas, that's a challenge. Still that is a challenge. SNC does not kind of ensure you that we'll just kind of get over this disparity. It has to be a gradual process, and there has to be a feedback, right? SNC is floated into the market, it's not all over yet. Get the feedback, look into it again. If you want to improve something, if you want to do something, that needs to be done.
Exactly. And in addition to that, what I would like to mention over here is, because I've taken a closer look and we have done shows previously on SNC as well, and so what I observed was that there's more equality, there's more inclusivity, there's more thought process, stimulation, that too about different religions and how people will have a better understanding. People will be more sympathetic and empathetic, and it's wonderful. But now let's move on to the publisher bit of it as well, because first of all, I think that that the first ever opposition came from the publishers, who were so used to of that very mafia that okay yaar yahi kitabein banni hai aur yahi syllabus hai aur yahi chalna hai. But now what I would want you to kind of answer is that imagine that now our textbooks really need to teach kids about Mark Zuckerberg and Stephen Hawking and whatnot, or probably Elon Musk or Nikola Tesla, so what do you think that this SNC is actually going to cover all of that, where the world is moving, or are we still kind of trying to incorporate different sorts of feeling and fields to make sure that it's more equality based version or inclusivity based version? Do you think it's going to work?
And one more point, because the time is really short and we want to squeeze much information out of it, especially after the 18th Amendment, education is also a provincial subject. So do you think that there is going to be, because every province will have its own say in terms of education, right? There is going to be more harmony in it, because when HSC was under the federal, so I think it has a lot more powers as compared to now, where the powers have been devolved to the provinces. So do you think that there is this harmony between different HECs in the first place, because every HEC has its own interest to maintain in the first place, right? And how does the SNC comes into the equation?
Okay, so basically, I mean, coming to the first question, I mean, it's like
or Al-Biruni, so even Muslim scholars as well.
Yeah, so I think it's a trial and error process. Like you have developed the SNCs, and it doesn't mean that now you're done. Like you just have to, when it will be implemented, of course you're going to take feedback from the different provinces, and of course then you'll see, okay, what are the challenges, how you're going to overcome those challenges. And again, right now you just put together all the curriculum that were being launched in all the 4 provinces, right? But now in the second phase, you can see, okay, now let's compare our curriculum with the world, right? For example, there is a top system in the world, which is International Baccalaureate. That is actually the modern system in the world. So we are not at a point right now to compare our curriculum with international curriculum at the time. But I think when it's going to be implemented, then you will see a lot of challenges come up. Of course, the people who belong to madrasas, of course, they will have their own concerns.
True.
The people from Balochistan, they'll have their own concern. There is a concern of language as well, because again, you're going to develop all the curriculum.
Yeah, it's like an everyday thing. So imagine PCB announces a playing 11 team, for Pakistan, and nobody agrees with it. So it's going to continue, and it's a very worldly process. But now, what I would want to ask you over here is, don't you think the National Curriculum Council have actually thought about all of these challenges they might incur or face, in days to come, where we are speaking of that, kind of talking about recent technologies, emerging technologies, people, scientists, contributions, people going to Mars missions, probably missions going to the space. Do you think that our books actually speak of it?
Recently you kind of look intrigued by astrophysics today. So yeah, it has been
incorporated.
It has been incorporated.
Okay.
It's cool. You're gonna have a look.
That's a good news.
Yeah, that's the good news. But again, it's a process, and definitely they have thought about this. They have thought about the challenges, and they look forward to, kind of amending that again and again.
Okay. And what will be the outcome? So this is the last question, which I would want you both to answer. What will be the outcome of SNC? So imagine till 12th grade, now we are studying the same thing.
All right, the outcome, SNC, Single National Curriculum. Outcome, a student graduating from IB, student graduating from OA levels, student graduating from matriculation, student graduating from madrasa. All having same caliber, all applying to same universities, getting into same engineering universities.
Wonderful.
In an engineering class, we'll have disparity. So it's not like, we'll have that differentiated learning abilities as well.
Wonderful.
So when you will have that contrast, that is what the aim of this curriculum.
But I still don't get, why do we get theorems in our metric examination?
No, they have been taken off. I guarantee you.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Yeah, but that's what's your take?
I think Moises obviously answered this question. There will be the student will be at the same caliber when they apply for the university, but again, it's going to take a lot of time.
Yes,
lot of time, because again, when you talk about the teaching skills in Balochistan, in Sindh, and in federal, of course, there is a huge difference. I mean, we need a lot of teacher training as well. First of all, we have to bring teachers to the point where they can actually, do justice with the curriculum actually.
Yeah. And thank you so much for saying that, because ladies and gentlemen, that means that a lot of parents are going to save a lot of money, and that too, because now it's not going to matter whether you send your kid to a private school or to a federal school or a government school or a public school. So I think that's where I would want the parents to think that if they're going to teach the same thing in a private school or in a public school, where are you going to send them? Obviously public school, why not? Right. And that's the kind of trust which we really need to bring back to our schools and our teachers and whatnot. They've done a brilliant job. But very quickly, thank you so much for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And today, I have a very important announcement to make about a gentleman whose happy birthday happens to be today. His name is Mr. Hasnan Hamid. He's one of the most amazing producers I've worked with, alhamdulillah. Earlier when he started, alhamdulillah, he started as a researcher. Now, alhamdulillah, he's a producer. He's done quite a lot. Earlier he was never on time, now he's before time. So, I'm going to congratulate you, Hasnan, that you've come a long way. You've done a wonderful job. You're a smart, amazing, intelligent, vibrant gentleman, and we want you to kind of have a wonderful life ahead, and that too with these anchors. Okay, so please make sure that you stay with World This Morning. It's lovely to have you over here. And if you can share a picture of Hasnan. Hasnan is not willing. He's on MCR in the master control room, and he's like, sir, I do not want to post my picture. Okay, we'll do it afterwards, in the edit. Okay, so Hajar, do you want to say something?
Yes, happy birthday to you, Hasnan, and may you have many more. But until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good morning.
I need to take a treat from Hasnan.
Yes.
Happy Hajj Day.